I wouldn't play Wiz right now. I've talked to you guys about this on stream as well. I wouldn't be playing Wiz if I wasn't a content creator.
Apparently they made world creation more efficient for them, especially with like voiceovers and all of that stuff. But are more worlds really what Wizard101 needs?
I think Wizard101 is about to enter a period of dying if they don't actually do something about it. If KingsIsle themselves or we as an audience don't actually push for something to happen, I don't think that this game will stagnate for much longer. I think it will actually start going on a downward trend where more and more players will leave and the game's problems will just keep getting worse and worse.
It's funny because they say, oh, we love looking at the stats of all these things and seeing how many players, you know, come back and how many players re-up their subscriptions or something like that. But they don't give us that information. They leave it, you know, on their back end. They're the only ones actually using this data.
When players complain about things, they are either intentionally or unintentionally dishonest about what's actually bothering them. We had a lot of meetings, but in between all those meetings, we were trying to figure out what's up with you players. What's up with you players?
Wizard101, a 14-year game that is praised for its nostalgic appeal and has gone through periods of highs and lows. So, what does this game currently look like in 2022, and is it worth playing? Let's discuss the pros and cons so that you can make the decision whether it's worth your time. My name is Tntosion, I am Australian, so forgive me if I pronounce things weirdly. The first con is that updates are quite slow, and when KingsIsle tries to fix a problem, they create a new one. Or sometimes they try to fix a problem but execute it the wrong way, and the most recent update is a prime example of this. Their solution to minimizing toxicity in PvP was to exclude all players who had a manual mute on their account from PvPing no matter what time frame they actually got their mute. That meant that players who chose to stay loyal to the game despite not being able to socialize got absolutely slapped in the face. Of course, this sparked huge controversy because it restricted muted players even further. They were unable to access PvP, tournaments, and pet derbies for incidents that were uncorrelated to these events. It really is frustrating because all of us want the game to succeed, yet we continually have to witness decisions that deter players from playing the game. Yes, you could appeal the mute by apologizing for your mistakes in the past and that you've changed as a person, but that simply puts a band-aid on the situation. It showed KingsIsle that regardless of controversial decisions, people are still willing to play the game, that they would need to mess up to the extreme for players to actually leave, and that ultimately encourages KingsIsle to continue to make controversial decisions without much repercussions. Some of the updates that the company has executed correctly was introducing the mirror shop, where players are finally allowed to recustomize their appearance for gold. Another useful update was combat delay, where you don't have to worry about being a complete disappointment anymore by entering the battle late. They have added a skip game feature when training pets as a way of deterring players from using cheat engine, and have also allowed players to lend hatches for free because players were extremely stingy a few years ago where they did not want to share their pet unless you gave them packs. Those are the few gold mines of an update, but usually it goes as follows. Once they try to fix a problem, they create a new one. Speaking of slow updates, the only endgame content is either PvP or to make a new character. It really is imperative for KingsIsle to increase their incentives, which they have attempted by introducing Deckathalon and Beast Moon. However, many players have argued that it does not feel rewarding participating in those events. Deckathalon is just an endless grind for runes for a deck that you don't really use outside of the Deckathalon, or if you wanted the hamster pad or to collect the badge, but that's basically about it. And for Basement, people either hate it or love it. I guess for me, I have tried it. It was a fun game mode, but I wouldn't see myself doing Beast Moon as endgame content. It's more like a one-time thing where you try it, see if you like it. If you do like it, it's like cool, I experienced it, and that's about it. So KingsIsle really needs to introduce new incentives as a way of maintaining players who have already reached the max level in questing. By the way, if you're agreeing with the con so far, the YouTube algorithm loves it when you give the like button a little smoochy smooch, and I'd also love to hear what your pros and cons list might be. Moreover, it's quite ridiculous that they continue to add more worlds, yet not make the first few worlds free. By the time a beginner player hits the paywall, they need to consider if it's worth paying a monthly sub for the next 20 plus worlds. Only recently have they introduced limited time offers of allowing free access to Wizard City and Crocotopia, because they want to analyze whether it will increase the amount of players. However, this is quite ineffective because they don't market the game, so how do they expect an increase in players if people don't know that the game exists? Speaking of marketing, you may remember the plethora of advertisements about a decade ago, where many of you had probably discovered the game because of them or from a friend recommendation. But because they do not market the game anymore, the community is very small, which also deters content creators. Why continue to make content for an undiscoverable game? TikTok is honestly doing a better job at marketing the game rather than the company itself. They have recently announced that they are open to hire new employees in the marketing field, which is a great step forward, and have plans of developing a mobile version of the game for 2022 onwards. But it's a matter of fact of how long it would take for it to be executed and done correctly. No pressure, KingsIsle, no pressure at all. Now, let's talk about what type of content the community likes to consume. Other than PvP, the community deviates more towards watching negative content rather than watching videos that praise the game. Take Formal Fandom's channel for example. These are back-to-back uploads, and it is very obvious that the videos that perform well are the ones that complain about the game. And the same happens with these back-to-back videos. So, what does this say about the Wizard101 community? Well, we are continuously disappointed about the game, and so we like to watch other people complain about the game too, essentially concluding that the game is currently not in a great position with the amount of times that the company has disappointed us. Now, the last few cons on the list include problematic spell changes, spell elements, the scammy crown shop, low drop rates, unbalanced stats, and this is for all the life wizards out there. Why is it so difficult to craft the rat's bin when other schools get their spells for free? Early on, your stats are already garbage, so why make it even more difficult for life wizards to play the game? But hey, don't let this video discourage you from playing the game. Wizard101 has garnered an extremely loyal fanbase where we continue to play the game even after several years, and that is where the problem lies. You shouldn't be playing any game for that long unless you're trying to become a professional esports player, which does not exist in Wizard101. However, if you are a new player, definitely continue playing the game. It has a great PvE community where many players are willing to help out with quests. Wizard101 is very much praised for the social aspects of the game, in which you can easily form an abundance of friends and even meet the love of your life. You can run the game on pretty much any potato device without experiencing much lag, and if you're desperate for social interaction, there are plenty of small streamers that would love to interact with you, including myself. Next, if you enjoy games that do not require 100% of your focus, then Wizard101 is a perfect game for you. The entire premise is that it revolves around questing, which is very repetitive. You basically cast the same AoE spells for hours, days and weeks, grind for gear for hours, days and weeks, and the same goes with pet training. Now, that may sound like a bad thing, but because it's the same thing over and over again, you know what to expect, so it's a perfect game for those who like to multitask or if you have ADHD. Speaking of grinding, that leads us to the next point, in which there are endless amount of things to do on the game. Log on to tend your plants, train a pet, grind for gear, PvP, talk to friends, do training point quests, grind for plant seeds, farm for aesthetic outfits, help people in team-ups, farm skeleton keys, farm for spells or spell elements, get into the trading market, make more pets, decorate a house, fish for mega snacks, fish for code wands, play instruments, collect badges, etc, etc. etc. There is literally so many things that you can do on this game. Another pro is the storyline. I am ashamed to say that I've skipped every dialogue from Wizard City to Lemuria, but if you do have the chance to read it, many have said that the storyline and the voice acting is absolutely superb. KingsIsle is also quite lenient in reworking updates. The mirror shop used to cost crowns to be able to change your appearance, but now it costs gold. Same with tournaments. When it was first introduced 8 years ago, this was how much it used to cost, and this is how much it costs now in 2022. That is a drastic improvement. And the last pro is that they are willing to update the graphics of the game and rework animations such as the beginner 1-pip spells or the infamous Forest Lord, where you could literally go to the bathroom and you'd still be waiting for the animation to end. They were very hesitant to change what is now the current Forest Lord, where they did not want it to pick up trees because it doesn't really make sense to destroy a living tree at a life school, but it was what the community wanted. They went through several iterations of the animation that the community did not like and ultimately agreed with the tree slapping. I'm sure it also benefited those with a slapping kink. I mean, what? I am Australian, meaning I do pronounce things weirdly, so I appreciate you all for making it to the part where I announced that I will be quitting Wizard101 by the end of 2022. Yes, I do agree it is career suicide because people who watch Wizard101 absolutely hate watching other games, but it is time for us to move on. I will, however, be returning when the player base increases significantly and when KingsIsle releases enough content to last a year's worth of a membership. If you are willing to watch content that is not a Wizard101 and you don't mind the Australian accent, definitely subscribe to the channel, and I'd highly recommend you joining my Discord server and following me over on Twitch.